So in today's video, I'm going to be ranking every League 2 club stadium from the 2024-25 campaign. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 150 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below what do you think is the best and worst stadiums in the league for this season, and also let me know down below where would you put your club stadium if obviously you do support a League 2 side. We have 6 categories to go through and rank them in. We've got stinker, poor, meh, decent, unreal and GOAT. We're going to decide the GOAT at the end of the video, but let's waste no further time and get straight into it. We'll start out firstly then with Colchester United. I think I'm going to put them in the meh category. It's a decent stadium, it's quite well rounded on the whole. I've been there once on a Tuesday night. We lost 1-0 in the 97th minute. Wasn't particularly ideal. I don't think it's an amazing stadium. I don't think it's anything to really write home about, but I also don't think it's a poor stadium. There's certainly a lot better, but there's also certainly a lot worse, so I'll stick them in meh for now. Swindon Town, I'm going to put them in the decent category. I do quite like Swindon Stadium, but it's not amazing and there are still a few things that I would change. The away end which you get if you sell a lot of tickets, it doesn't look particularly amazing. As a Bradford fan, I don't think I've ever been in that stand. I don't think we've ever sold enough tickets to be in that stand, but it doesn't look amazing. And I also feel like the view you get from the normal away end isn't amazing. When you're trying to look down at the far goal in front of the Swindon fans, you can't really see much. So from that point of view, it does knock it down a little bit, but it is one of the biggest stadiums in this division and it does deserve a little bit of credit for that. Walsall FC is up next. Now, in years gone by, I've been very critical of the Walsall Stadium. I'll probably put it in the meh category. I think it's got some good stuff, some bad stuff. Obviously, the main stand that the Walsall fans have is probably the biggest standout. It does look a bit of an anomaly compared to the rest of the stadium, which is all fairly level in terms of the size, and then you've got the big stand behind the goal, but I don't think it's an amazing stadium. It has the really annoying poles, which sometimes means you can't actually see what's going on in the game, but I guess if that's what is going to hold the roof up from collapsing on your head, then it's not the end of the world, so I'll probably put Walsall in the meh category. Accrington Stanley is up next. I'm probably going to put them in the stinker category. It's an away end which hasn't got a roof, and sometimes you can, get a laugh out of it if it's not your fans there, but if it's chucking it down, it's not a nice place to be honest with you. We have quite an okay record over the last couple of seasons at Accrington. We beat them 3-0 away from home last season in the league and beat them on penalties in the Carlisle Cup, but in terms of the stadium on the whole and its facilities, obviously, they're never going to have a massive stadium. They are one of the smaller clubs in the division, but it's not one that I traditionally do look forward to every season. AFC Wimbledon is up next then, a very new stadium back at Plough Lane, and I probably put them either right at the top end of meh or the bottom of decent. And I think it's a solid stadium, but it's not amazing. There's nothing really too groundbreaking. It's kind of just placed in the middle of loads of buildings and blocks of flats and all that sort of stuff, and I just think it's fairly average. There's nothing really too stand out. They have the main stand, which is a bit bigger than the other stands, but it's a nice modern stadium, but on the whole I don't really think it's too much to write home about. I'm sure this one might be a bit controversial. If you want to argue bottom end of decent, I certainly wouldn't disagree, but for now I'm going to put them in meh. Barrow AFC are up next. They're definitely going in stinker. Their stadium, if you can even call it that, is, as you would expect, an absolute dump. The away end is improved ever so slightly over the last couple of seasons, but even last year when we went towards the back end of the campaign, when Tyler Smith scored a last minute winner there, the fact that you've got to have that plastic sort of separation sheet thing, whatever on earth you want to call it, between the home and away fans is criminal. You can barely even see the goal. There's obviously no stand behind the opposite goal as well, and if I was to put Barrow in anywhere other than stinker, I would feel disgusted with myself. My team Bradford City are up next then. I think the second biggest stadium in the division. I'm going to obviously put it in unreal and a contender to go in that GOAT category at the end. It's obviously a very unique stadium. You've got 2 stands which are massive. You've got Midland Road, you've got the TL Dallas. They're all very different, and the way that the Cop and the main stand are connected with the northwest corner, no other connections are made as well throughout the rest of the stadium, but I think it's a really nice stadium. As you would expect, I am a bit biased, but I think it's one of the best in the division, so I'm putting it in the unreal category. Bromley FC, I think, is the only stadium which I haven't been to out of the current League 2 clubs, so maybe take my ranking of Bromley Stadium with a little bit of a pinch of salt, but as you would expect from a team coming up from the National League, the facilities aren't amazing. For now, I'm going to put it in stinker. You could certainly make that argument to put them in poor because I haven't been there, so I'm more than happy to be kind of change my opinion on that one, but from the pictures I've seen and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't look amazing. Next up then, we have Carlisle United. I'll probably put them in at decent. There's some good things and some bad things about the Carlisle Stadium. I know, is it the Warwick Road end, or the kind of standing behind the goal which doesn't have a roof on it? That's very rarely open, and sometimes you get the away fans, sometimes you get the home fans. But I think Carlisle, because their pitch is so massive, it's kind of hard for them to generate an atmosphere throughout the whole stadium. But again, all their stands are very unique, very dissimilar as well, which is something that you do quite like. I think this stand, which is opposite to the normal away end, seems quite old school rather than the modern approach that someone like a Wimbledon have at these sort of days. But I think it's a decent stadium, still lots of room for improvement. Look like what the Pyrotechs have been doing since they came in around January time. But I think their stadium is decent on the whole, but unfortunately we don't have a particularly good record of going there, and we haven't won since 1985. Next up then, we move on to Cheltenham Town. I think I look at the teams who are currently in the stinker category, I'll probably put them in part. I think their stadium is slightly better than some of the other ones. It's obviously not the biggest, it's not amazing, but it could certainly be a lot worse. I do think it's a very unique stadium in the way that it's built. You've got the terracing for the home fans behind the goal, then you've got kind of where their atmosphere section is in the seating, and then behind the goal for the away fans, that's seating. Then you've got the kind of bigger stand, which I would assume is their main stand on the other side. And I think on the whole, it's not an amazing stadium, but I do certainly think there are worse facilities for this level, so I'm going to put them in the pot category. Chesterfield FC are up next, and I'll probably put them right at the top of decent. They're probably maybe unlucky to miss out in Unreal, but I think the standard of Unreal is a little bit higher than Chesterfield Stadium. I'm really happy they've been promoted into League 2. I'm looking forward to going there this season, but I'm pretty sure they've changed the way their away allocations work. You now just get kind of the corner bit at the end of the side stand rather than behind the goal, so that kind of dampens them down a little bit. But in terms of their stadium on the whole and the facilities, it's a nice big stadium which isn't kind of crowded with loads of empty seats, and I think they pack it out well, they make a good atmosphere there, so I'm going to put Chesterfield in at the decent category. Crewe Alexandra, I'm probably going to put in port. They've got the one absolutely massive stand and then three tiny stands. I don't really understand it. The away end's on the side, but sometimes you get behind the goal. The ticket prices are majorly expensive, which I guess is a conversation for another video, but I'm going to put them in port. I guess if their whole stadium was built like their main stand, there'd be thousands of empty seats, like what they kind of already is. So I would love to know the context behind them having one absolutely humongous stand and the other three being tiny. It's like Walsall, but on steroids. They're going in poor for me. Doncaster Rovers, their stadium I think is fairly new, fairly modern. I'll probably put them in the decent category. It's kind of one of them circular bowl sort of stadiums, which again, you would see quite a lot of empty seats traditionally when you do go there, but the away end you can get up to 4,000, I believe, so I don't mind that all too much. And I think on the whole, there's nothing really too amazing about it. I think it's a decent stadium, it's okay facilities, but I don't think it's in any type of contention to go in that Unreal category. I certainly think the stadiums which are similar sort of models which are a lot better for this level. Gillingham FC are up next then. I'm probably going to put them in meh. Again, they've got some decent stands. You know, I think it's at the Rainham end behind the goal for the home fans. I think that's a pretty decent stand. And then if you're in the Rainham end, the stand to the right I think is pretty solid. But the away end and the kind of corner bit that you sometimes get from an away end, them two stands are criminal. The scaffolding, goodness me, you could put that in stinker alone. How that's still allowed at this level is absolutely crazy. But again, similar to Accrington, you don't want to be in an open terrace when it's raining, and I've been to Gillingham a couple of times now. Traditionally we've got an okay record there over the last couple of seasons, but we play them this Saturday and I'm hoping that we can get the 3 points against them. Obviously that is at Valley Parade. Fleetwood Town are up next then. I think they're very similar to Cheltenham Town, so I'm probably going to have to put them in port. They've got a fairly modern-ish stadium, again one of the smaller clubs for this level, a few kind of terracing stands, and then you've got kind of the big main stand, which I do think is quite a nice stand in honesty. Then across from that is kind of just some really small seating, but it is very similar to Cheltenham Town in the way that that stadium is built, so I think it's probably fair that I'll put them in at the port category. Grimsby Town, I quite like their stadium in all honesty. I'd probably put them towards the top end of decent. I think they've got some good fans, they pack it out well, they make a really good atmosphere. It's a shame that kind of they've reduce the allocation for the away end to fit more home fans in, but I guess that's their prerogative to do so, and if they want to get more home fans in, then fair enough. But again, they've got different types of stands. It's quite a unique stadium as well. They've got the two-tiering on the left side, or the left stand if you sat in the away end, and I think on the whole it's a pretty tidy stadium, although I don't think the black and white seats really work. I understand obviously because it's their colours, but it's just not particularly my cup of tea. Harrogate Town, I'm putting them in stinker simply because Bradford City never win there. It's a horrible stadium. I know they recently kind of changed the away end, but when I went there, it was an absolutely shocking away end, one of the worst I've ever been in, and yeah, I can't put it in that's not English, I can't put it in any higher than stinker, just because it's an absolutely awful stadium. I think we've won there once in our history. Not ideal. MK Dons is probably one of the very few stadiums which can compete with Bradford City. Obviously, it's a 35,000 seater. Yes, it's a bit of a ball. The seats, though, are very comfy. It feels like you're sat in posh seats where everywhere you go. I've been in the upper tier, I've been in the lower tier, and I think it's a very, very nice stadium. Obviously, they're never going to sell it out. You know, they can barely sell out kind of the bottom tier, but who knows, maybe if MK were in the Premier League one day, would they get closer to that? Probably not still, but in terms of their stadium, on the whole, it's a very nice stadium, and I think their ticket prices were quite cheap as well. Morecambe FC, again, very similar to Cheltenham, to Fleetwood, them sort of clubs. They've got one massive stand and then some other stands which aren't amazing. The away end is a bit of a weird one because you have to walk up some steps to get into terracing. Never seen anything like that before. The stand on the right to the away end as well, kind of open terracing, doesn't look amazing. You've got the terracing behind the goal, and obviously the seating for the main stand, but very similar to Cheltenham and Fleetwood in that regard. They've got the one big main stand, other three kind of smaller stands which aren't particularly amazing, so I think it makes sense to put all of them in the same category. Newport County, I'd probably stick them in Port as well. I don't think it's an amazing stadium whatsoever. They've got open terracing, they've got kind of they look like rugby stands, to be fair, and it's understandable with them obviously being partnered with a rugby club, and then behind the goal on the other side, is that even a stand? Compared to the other teams which are in Port so far, I feel like the other four are very similar in the fact they've got one big nice stand and then the other three aren't particularly amazing. Newport have got two kind of rugby stands and two not particularly amazing stands, so I'm going to put them in the Port category. Next up then, we go to Notts County. This is definitely one of the better ones that we'll see in this video. I'd probably argue putting them in Unreal. I really do like the Notts County. It's got a bit of old school, but a bit of modern vibe as well about it, which I do certainly like. Three different types of stands as well, and I would say on the whole, it's a really nice stadium. You get a massive allocation as well for the away end, which I think is really positive news, and on the whole, I think it's a really nice stadium. Is it enough to kind of be the best in League 2? I wouldn't say so as of right now, but it is certainly a really nice stadium. If they get up into League 1 or the Championship, then who knows how they could expand that and maybe develop on Meadow Lane at the moment, but I do think it is a really nice stadium. Not many teams are left to go now in today's video. Port Vale FC is up next, and I'd probably stick them somewhere in decent. Do I put them above or below Swindon? I'd rather put them on top, to be honest, not to cause any controversy, but I would say I slightly do prefer Port Vale Stadium to Swindon. It's a proper old school, none of this modern nonsense which you see, which can look nice, but I think Port Vale, the only thing that kind of takes Port Vale's stadium down a little bit for me is the away end. When I went there in the 21-22 season, we drew 1-1 live on Sky Angle, scored a looping header. The away end, I think it's changed now, they kind of swapped the sides, but it was so bizarre about how shallow it was. It felt like whether you stood at the front or at the back, there wasn't really that much difference, and you had to kind of stand on your tiptoes to see anything. I didn't really like that, in all honesty, and it's taken them down a little bit, but I think it's a nice kind of standard League 2, League 1, lower league sort of stadium, and I think you can generate a decent atmosphere in the away end. Their home fans as well, which are kind of, or they were, to the left side of where the away end was when I remember, again, not being there for a couple of seasons, so things might have changed now, but I would say Port Vale Stadium on the whole is fairly decent. Salford City, I think I'd be wasting my time if I put them in anywhere other than stinker. Absolutely horrible stadium, 3-4 shocking stands. Really do not like going to Salford, and I don't think the ticket prices are particularly amazing for the view that you get. I'm not the massivest, that's not a word, I'm not the biggest fan of terracing. I know a lot of people are, it's just my personal preference. I prefer seating and obviously stand up regardless, but I'm not the biggest fan of terracing. I feel like your view can be a bit restricted with how crowded it can get, especially in Salford's away, and so I'm going to put them in stinker. And the final stadium in today's video might be slightly controversial, and it might be a bit of recency bias. I think Tranmere Stadium is unreal. I'm a big fan of all four of their stands. I think it works really well. The away end is very steep, which can cause for absolute carnage, like what we saw in the vlog on Saturday. Make sure to go check that one out if you haven't already, and thank you all so much for the support on it so far. But I really like their home stand behind the goal, two-tiered, looks really nice there. You've got the stand to the right, again, I'm pretty sure that is two-tiered from the away end that I'm talking about to the right. I think that's quite nice. Yes, obviously it's not massively packed out, but they've got clubs like Liverpool and Everton on their doorstep, so I think it is a little bit understandable. The only slight dampener is their stand to the left of the away, and I don't think that's a particularly amazing one, done, but for a League 2 club at the moment, are they going to have 4 amazing stands? Probably not. I still quite like them all, though. I think on the whole it is a really, really nice stadium, and one I certainly do look forward to going to. In terms of the best stadium in the division, I would love to be biased, but I think the correct answer is MK Dons, isn't it? I'm sure you'll disagree, more than agree with my ranking a lot more, so let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like on there for me as well, and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 150 likes on today's video? That would be massively appreciated. Where do you think your team should be ranked in this list? Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon for another one.